Yo, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video here on the channel. For those of you who don't know me, hello, my name is Roger and I'm now an incoming student at the University of California, San Diego. Now today's video will be kind of a different one where I'll be taking you guys through the process of one of my own custom mechanical keyboard builds. This board was sent to me by SR Studios, however my opinion will always be my own. I was not paid to do this review, nor did the designers get to see the video in advance. So without further ado, let's get unboxing. First up, we have the keyboard. This is the Radiance 65. It's a relatively niche 65% keyboard designed by SR Studios from China. Despite the damages of the box during shipping, the Radiance 65 comes in this amazing black and silver themed minimal packaging, which I really enjoy. Inside the box, we're greeted with a set of plate-mounted stabilizers, an extra set of daughter board and JST cable, an OLED screen, a PVD weight protection film, an aluminum plate, a 4x4 plate, a hot swap PCB, and of course the Radiance 65 itself. Alrighty, so let's check on the rubber feet and open it up. The top and bottom piece are held together by a quick release system using magnets. Although this makes rebuilding more convenient, I'm not a huge fan of this particular quick release concept as a lot of force is required to separate the top and bottom parts. In addition, the magnets are really strong and the top and bottom pieces snap together quite uncomfortably, and if not careful, the direct metal to metal contact may potentially damage the case or scuff parts of the anodization. The overall build quality of the case is great. The CNC machining is really high quality and the anodization is also quite smooth. I don't see any rough edges or imperfections, and the board honestly feels very premium in the hands. All the chassis is made from 6063 aluminum, topped by a stunning PVD stainless steel weight on the bottom, which should help with acoustics. The PVD weight really distinguishes the Radiance 65 from other boards as the finish is silky smooth and the quality is just impeccable. Overall, the Radiance 65 has a great build quality and I'm extremely happy with it. The top case is a lot thinner than what we are used to and has a very clean and minimal design, but it does manage to spice it up a bit with a few little details. We have reasonably sized bezels, but they have this slightly angled and stepped design that gives the board a bit more touch and dimension. And also on the top right corner, we have our cutout for the OLED screen. The board also comes with this stunning PCB, which honestly might be one of the prettiest ones I've seen so far. The black and copper color scheme, even though I'm not going to see this once the board is fully built, is truly something remarkable. It has an NC layout with a 5-pin south-facing switch configuration and KO hot swap sockets. However, the PCB is on the thinner side of 1.2mm and has flex cuts implemented on every row. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this design as it makes the overall sound of the keyboard thinner and less full sounding. But this does make the typing experience softer and bouncier, so it's totally up to personal preferences. The designer also mentioned that this board was aimed more towards people new to the hobby, which are more likely to use PE foam and plate foam, and this basically eliminates the impact of the flex cuts on the acoustics. Interestingly, the PCB also comes with a SD card reader below the spacebar, which will be used to store animations for the OLED screen. I actually find this design really creative as it demonstrates how the designer was able to use novelties to make new features more accessible. Now we can't talk about the Radiance 65 without mentioning this OLED screen. The OLED screen is probably the centerpiece of the Radiance 65. The implementation of the OLED screen on this board is truly innovational. With the one-of-a-kind Wi-Fi feature, the OLED screen is actually capable to display time and even weather. In addition, images and animations can be displayed directly upon inserting the SD card into the card slot. Alright, so we can finally go into the actual build. The first thing I want to focus on are the stabilizers. as they can either make or break a keyboard build. Because we have a thinner 1.2mm PCB instead of the more usual 1.6mm, some stabilizers won't fit properly, depending on what brand you get. Even though the board supports both PCB mount and plate mount stabilizers, both the plates sent to me was only compatible with plate mount stabilizers. Now this was no surprise to me, as many Chinese designers and enthusiasts prefer plate mount stabs over PCB mount stabs. This is primarily because they are easier to tune in the future, as you don't have to remove all the switches and disassemble the PCB plate compound. This is actually my first time using plate mount stabs in a build, and honestly the results kind of shocked me. The stabs that came with the board came pre-clipped and lubed, and honestly they're actually really decent. However, I went ahead and cleaned the factory grease with soap and isopropyl alcohol and re-lubed everything myself just to make sure. I lubed the stabilizer housings and wires with Krytox 205G0 and applied the Holee mod. I also made sure and added some fabric tape in between the plate and the stabilizer housing to reduce wobble. Here's how they sound after the mod. Honestly, I don't see a huge difference sound-wise and performance-wise between plate mount and PCB mount stabs, at least for this build, and that's probably why a lot of Chinese enthusiasts really enjoy plate mount stabs. Now before we continue with the build and install the switches, we also have some optional foam which is included with the kit. First, we have the PE foam which goes in between the PCB and the switches. On top of that, you can use the mid-port and plate foam if you wish. And finally, there is also the bottom case foam. I will only be using the bottom case foam for this build, as the PE foam and plate foam causes a foamy sound signature and removes the uniqueness of the board, which I don't like. Now, the default plate that came with the board was FR4, but I was also sent an additional aluminum plate which I'll be trying today. Unlike a lot of flex cut PCBs, the cuts on the plate matches the flex cuts on the PCB, which should actually provide a more flexible typing experience. Also, instead of normal pour-on gaskets, the Radiance 65 implements silicone gasket socks just like most gasket mount boards nowadays, which are considerably easier and faster to install compared to normal pour-on gaskets. These gasket socks are movable and reusable, which is a lot more convenient if you're considering builds with multiple plate configurations. Most importantly, silicone gasket socks won't easily deform like pour-on gasket strips when stretched or installed improperly. Now we can proceed to the switches. The switches I'll be using for this build will be the Durock palms, lubed with Krytox 205G0 and filmed with Desky switch films. I personally really enjoy the clacky high-pitched sound of the Durock palms. The self-lubricating palm material of the housing also gives the switch a very smooth typing experience. In addition, the switches will eventually become smoother after breaking them in due to the uniqueness of the palm material. And let's get to the build montage. Before assembling the top and bottom case together, I made sure to screw on the OLED screen to the top case and plugged in the ribbon cable to connect it to the PCB. Next, I plugged in the JST ribbon cable to the PCB to connect it to the daughter board. Finally, we can snap on the top and bottom housing together. And of course, to top it all off, we have the Umbra keycap set from PBTFans. And there we have it, the Radiance 65 custom mechanical keyboard. What a masterpiece it is. In conclusion, the Radiance 65 is a great keyboard. The designer definitely did a good job implementing novelties such as the OLED screen and the quick release system. At the end of the day, it's a great product and hits a specific market. It's decent in sound, after modding of course, but still comes a bit short. It's minimal and good looking, but the anodization finish is by no means the best. And if you look at it closely, it looks okay. So the final verdict, should you buy it? If the vendor decides to do an international sale, I would say yes, but only if you're A, new to the hobby, or B, an enthusiast that would like to play around with a 65% board with an OLED screen and not spending fortunes with something like the Vita and the Corsa. I won't do much talking anymore and let you guys have a listen. Alright guys, that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching and hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing and pressing the like button down below. Also feel free to share any of your opinions and thoughts on the Radiance 65 or just any general suggestions to the channel down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.